कुञ्ज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज बिहारी गोपी जनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी गोपी जनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज बिहारी गोपी जनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुञ्ज बिहारी जय ओम विश्वपाद परमहंस प्रवचकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस से भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विश्वपाद परमहंस प्रवचकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। ऑल गुरुस assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All Gurus assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All Gurus assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhiraye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। From Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 14, entitled Ideal Family Life, verse 6. Nyatayah pitaro putra भ्रातरा सुहृदो परे यद वदन्ति यद इच्छन्ति चानुमोदेत निर्ममा। ज्ञातयः पितरो पुत्रा भ्रातरा सुहृदो परे यद वदन्ति यद इच्छन्ति चानुमोदेत निर्ममा। ज्ञातयः पितरो पुत्रा भ्रातरा सुहृदो परे यद वदन्ति यद इच्छन्ति चानुमोदेत निर्ममा। सुहृदो परे सुहृदो परे यद वदन्ति यद इच्छन्ति चानुमोदेत निर्ममा। ज्ञातयः पितरौ पुत्रा भ्रातरा सुहृदो परे यद वदन्ति यद इच्छन्ति चानुमोदेत निर्ममा। माताजी's ज्ञातयः पितरौ पुत्रा भ्रातरा सुहृदो परे यद वदन्ति यद इच्छन्ति चानुमोदेत निर्ममा। ज्ञातयः पितरो पुत्रा भ्रातरा सुहृदो परे यद वदन्ति यद इच्छन्ति चानुमोदेत निर्ममः। ज्ञातयः पितरो पुत्रा भ्रातरा सुहृदो परे यद वदन्ति यद इच्छन्ति चानुमोदेत निर्ममा। ज्ञातयः relatives, family members. Pitaro, the father and mother. Putra, children. Bhratara, brothers. Suhrada, friends. Apare, and others. Yat, whatever. Vadanti, they suggest in regards to one's means of livelihood. Yat, whatever. Icchanti, they wish. Cha, and anumodeta, he should agree. Nirmama, but without taking them seriously. Translation: an intelligent man in human society should make his own program of activities very simple. If there are suggestions from his friends, children, parents, brothers, or anyone else, he should externally agree, saying, yes, that is all right. But internally, he should be determined not to create a cumbersome life in which the purpose of life will not be fulfilled. I'll read the next verse also. There is no purport on this. Verse 7, translation and purport. The natural products created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead should be utilized to maintain the bodies and souls of all living entities. The necessities of life are of three types: those produced from the sky, is from rainfall, from the earth, from the mines, the seas, or the fields, and from the atmosphere, that which is obtained suddenly and unexpectedly. Purport: we living entities in different forms are all children of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita 14.4. Sarvayonishu kaunteya murtaya sambhavanti yaha tasam brahma mahadyonir aham bija pradapita. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. The Supreme Lord Krishna is the father of all living entities in different species and forms. One who is intelligent can see that all living entities in the 84 lakh bodily forms are parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are his sons. Everything within the material and spiritual worlds is the property of the Supreme Lord, �11𝗵𝗂, and therefore everything has a relationship with him. Srila Rupa Goswami says in this regard, Prapanchikataya buddhya harisambandhi vastunah 𝗦𝗵𝗱𝗶 𝗣𝗵𝗱𝗶. One who rejects anything without knowledge of its relationship to Krishna is incomplete in his renunciation. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.256. Although Mayavadi philosophers say that the material creation is false, actually it is not false. It is factual. But the idea that everything belongs to human society is false. Everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for everything is created by him. All living entities, being the Lord's sons, his eternal parts and parcels, have the right to use their father's property by nature's arrangement. As stated in the Upanishads, Tena Tektena Bhunjita Magrada Kasya Svidhanam. Everyone should be satisfied with the things allotted to him by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one should encroach upon another's rights or property. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhava yagyad bhavati parjanyo yagya karma samudbhava. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yagya, sacrifice, and yagya is born of prescribed duties. Bhagavad Gita 3.14. When food grains are sufficiently produced, both animals and human beings can be nourished without difficulty for their maintenance. This is nature's arrangement. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. Everyone is acting under the influence of material nature, and only fools think they can improve upon what God has created. The householders are specifically responsible for seeing that the laws of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are maintained without fighting between men, communities, societies, or nations. Human society should properly utilize the gifts of God, especially the food grains that grow because of rain falling from the sky. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Yagyad bhavanti parjanya. So that rainfall will be regulated, humanity should perform yagyas, sacrifices. Yagyas were previously performed with offerings of oblations of ghee and food grains, but in this age, of course, this is no longer possible, for the production of ghee and food grains has diminished because of the sinful life of human society. However, people should take to Krishna consciousness and chant the Hare Krishna mantra as recommended in the Shastras, Yagya Sankirtana Prayar Ijanti Sumedasha. If people throughout the world take to the Krishna consciousness movement and chant the easy sound vibration, Prabhupada says the easy sound vibration of the transcendental name and fame of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there will be no scarcity of rainfall. Consequently, food grains, fruits, and flowers will be properly produced, and all the necessities of life will be easily obtained. Grahasthas or householders should take the responsibility for organizing such natural production. It is therefore said, 𝗣𝗵𝗱𝗶𝗶. An intelligent man should try to spread Krishna consciousness through the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, and all the necessities of life will automatically follow. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. I'll read both the translations. This translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. This is verse 6 and 7. So verse 6 translation is, an intelligent man in human society should make his own program of activities very simple. If there are suggestions from his friends, children, parents, brothers or anyone else, he should externally agree, saying, yes, that is all right. But internally he should be determined not to create a cumbersome life in which the purpose of life will not be fulfilled. And verse 7 translation, the natural products created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead should be utilized to maintain the bodies and souls of all living entities. The necessities of life are of three types: those produced from the sky, which is from the rainfall; those produced from the earth, which is from the mines, seas or the fields; and from the atmosphere, that which is obtained suddenly and unexpectedly. Hare Krishna. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, chapter 14, entitled Ideal Family Life. And we are reading from verse 6 and 7, seeking the blessings of all Vaishnavas to be able to speak on this subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam, transcendental subject matter. So, just to give a brief recap, we'll discuss about a brief recap. We'll discuss 3-4 subtopics, which is natural humility consciousness. We'll discuss on the format of Grahastha life, and we'll discuss response to suggestions, and we will discuss on recognize, utilize, and maximize the gifts of God. These are some subtopics that we'll try to cover from this. This chapter is entitled as Ideal Family Life. Prior to this, already Brahmachari life, Vanaprastha, Sannyas has already been spoken about. A renounced order is considered to be extremely glorious. As from the scriptures, we see so many examples. There are vivid examples, right, from Chitraketu receiving Narad Muni, Angira, or we see Prithu Maharaj receiving the 4 Kumaras, or Maharaj Nimi receiving the Navayogendras. Even Vasudeva himself, the father of Krishna. I mean, it's a very beautiful example. Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra Bhagwan ki jai, Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maiya ki jai, Shri 𝐒𝐫𝐢𝐸𝐴 ki jai, Shri Balaji Bhagwan ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. It's a very beautiful example that Vasudeva, who is the father of Krishna, who can say, my son is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But when Narad Muni comes, he offers the hospitality and the due respect and actually hears from Narad Muni. So, renounced order of life is extremely glorious and worshipable. But however, this particular chapter is focused on ideal family life. So there will be a little focus on the family life part of it. But still there will be something which is quite common to all the ashrams. As much as possible, we'll try to do that. So just a brief recap. So this is the 7th canto. So practically the first 10 chapters of the 7th canto are talking about Prahlad Narasimha Katha. That was one of the very large sections. Even there, if you see, the beginning of it is where Yudhishthira Maharaj is asking questions from Narad Muni. That is, he's talking about whether the Lord is impartial, whether the Lord is equal to all. That's how the chapter begins. Eventually, it leads to Prahlad Narasimha Katha. And now, after 10 chapters, the 11th chapter talks about the 4 Varnas in detail. The whole entire chapter is dedicated for that. 12th chapter talks about the 4 ashrams, and in particular it highlights about Brahmachari and Vanaprastha life. It's particularly highlighted there. 13th chapter talks about Sannyas life, entitled as Behavior of a Perfect Person. And here the 14th chapter now we are in, which is entitled as Ideal Family Life. Someone may ask, why this particular sequence? Why brahmachari life is ashrams, varna and ashram, then brahmachari, then vanaprastha, then sannyas, and now there is talking about grihastha life. Prabhupada mentions in the first purport of this chapter, he says, why this particular sequence? Because he says that sex is not at all necessary. So first Narad Muni is focusing on brahmacharya, vanaprastha and sannyas. And if at all it is required, then yes, it is still sanctioned as part of grihastha ashram, which is supposed to be regulated by two main things. One is Shastra and by spiritual master. That is a regulation which helps the grihasthas to be able to maintain the spiritual life and practice spiritual life intensely. So overall, we see here, as we mentioned about Yudhishthira Maharaj, he is asking questions to Narad Muni, and Narad Muni is explaining the details. He has spoken about Varna and Ashram and all this. Right in the first verse, if you see, Yudhishthira Maharaj's consciousness is very much reflected, where he says, Madrisho Mudadhi, Griha Mudadhi. Right in the first verse, he talks about Madrisha Griha Mudadhi, which basically says, I am ignorant of the purpose of life. I am ignorant of the goal of life. So it's a very significant thing which is being spoken by Yudhishthira Maharaj here. This is not a private statement. This is not spoken to Narad Muni in seclusion. This is recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is spoken in front of the assembly. It's a big assembly where many personalities are present there, where Narad Muni has arrived and Yudhishthira Maharaj is asking questions, where he is now talking about himself as, I am completely ignorant of the goal of life. Madrsho, Mudadhi. So, this is a very natural humility consciousness which Yudhishthira Maharaj is expressing here, which is not natural for common people. Right? What he is expressing is, he is actually feeling it. He is actually feeling that he is that he is feeling fallen. That's why we can consider as one of the lowest stages is where a person is fallen, but he does not feel so. A person is actually fallen, but he does not feel so. A little higher stage is where a person is fallen and he understands, yes, he is fallen. A little better stage is a person is fallen, he understands he is fallen, and he also accepts that I am fallen. I mean, if we get further more detail, that can be more fine-tuned on this, where a person can feel fallen, understand fallen, accept fallen, but only in small circles. Only in small circle he is able to accept that. In bigger circles, he will feel shy about it. So here we find Yudhishthira Maharaj, in spite of being the monarch, he is the king of the entire planet, not just of a small temple or a community or a state or a nation or the biggest of the nations. He is the king of the entire planet. But look at his humility consciousness, where he is actually feeling humble in spite of actually having so many qualifications. And this is a natural consciousness which is very conducive for spiritual growth. We see even Chitraketu Maharaj in front of, again, Narad Muni and Angira, he also mentioned that he expressed as 𝗲𝗵𝗄. 𝗲𝗵𝗄 talks about a wild dog or a pig. And again he uses the same words, Griha Mudadhi, that I am ignorant of the goal of life. And Sanatana Goswami in front of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says, I don't even know who am I. I don't even understand why am I suffering the threefold miseries. People call me Pandit and I believe it so. So he is expressing his great humility in front. So generally when a person comes in front of a superior or a spiritual master, it is very natural that this tendency of humility is supposed to arise, especially in front of superiors. If it can arise in front of all, that is something really great, which Yudhishthira Maharaj is able to express very explicitly and vividly in front of the entire assembly, in front of Narad Muni. So very beautiful consciousness. So if we talk from Grahamedi to Grahastha, it's a journey. For a Grahamedi, if you ask, I mean, it's like who is he? Then it is like 𝗕𝗵𝗱𝗶𝗶, like a wild pig or a dog. We're just talking theory. We don't. It's not that every time we see people around, then we should look at people around like that. But just from the perspective of concept or consciousness, for a Grahamedi, it is the I is 𝗕𝗵𝗱𝗶𝗶, it's like wild pig or a dog. And where does he stay? Graham Andhakupam, which is deep dark well without any water. And what is his condition? Mudadhiya, which is called as ignorant of the goal of life. Now this is the concept. This is not healthy to look at people around. Definitely not. And of course, talking from the Grahamedi perspective, from Grahamedi to Grahastha, then that is where Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about Jedina Grihe Bhajana Deki Grihete Goloko Bhaya. The day when I go to the house and I see beautiful kirtans going on and I see my house transformed as Golok. So it's a big journey from Grahamedi to a Grahastha, and we may be somewhere in between, and as long as we are making some progress towards the higher goals, that is good for our life. So that's about natural humility consciousness, which Yudhishthira Maharaj was able to express in front of the assembly, in front of particularly talking to Narad Muni. That's why you'll find one is on a theory platform, but here Yudhishthira Maharaj is able to actually feel that and express it. Just like Uddhava, when he came in front of the gopis, that time he could realize why Lord Krishna has sent me here. Although I am considered to be a disciple of Brihaspati, so learned, but when Lord Krishna sends him to Vrindavan to meet the gopis, he could understand what is the value of his knowledge, what is the value of his panditya, and he actually aspires to become grass, gulmalata. He actually becomes, where that is a stage of realization that in spite of having so much knowledge, he wants to express that humility, not only just express, but practically performs tapasya to be able to achieve that stage of humility. That is about the natural humility consciousness. The next subtopic we can discuss about is the format of Grahastha life, which Prabhupada tells very beautifully. Of course, even the verses it's very crystal clear from this particular chapter. So we can go through the particular theme or the concept of the format for Grahastha life as mentioned up till now, which is, I'll just mention about 4 points, beginning with Vasudeva Arpanam. The life should be centered around Krishna. Vasudeva Arpanam, like Bhagavad Gita talks about, Yat karoshi, yat ashnashi, yat juhoshi dadasi, yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushva mad arpanam. Whatever you eat, whatever sacrifice you perform, whatever austerities you do that as a sacrifice for me. Vasudeva Arpanam. Vasudeva Paragata, like there's beautiful verses in the Bhagavatam which explains everything is meant to be offered for the satisfaction of Vasudeva. Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. This is, of course, this is common for all ashrams, but particularly from the Grahastha perspective, this is the first thing mentioned as Vasudeva Arpanam. One should base his life, or we can say one should mold his life in such a way that Krishna is the center of our lives. Sometimes people try to keep Krishna in the center of their house. They measure exactly where is the center and try to keep Krishna in the center. But what it basically means is how our life is molded around Krishna. Just like usually when a boy gets married, then the life generally centers around the wife. And then eventually when children come, then the whole life centers around the children. When we say centers around the children means it is directed and dictated based on the children's schedules or needs. It's like if the child gets up at 1 in the night, 12 o'clock in the night, then the whole schedule gets disrupted. But the parents have to do the needful to take care of the family members. So it's usually like there are phases of life when the centers, apparently it seems one, like the child is in focus or the spouse is in focus. But overall, Krishna is supposed to be the center of our lives. And one has to strive to do this. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen just by keeping Krishna in the actual center of the house, but by making our activities in such a way that there is some service that we take towards Krishna consciousness, by which the body and the mind both are engaged in Krishna. When we take services, especially when we take ownership of services, then there is a great potential for the mind, for the body, as well as the mind to be engaged in Krishna's service, around Krishna. The next point he mentions about the format for Grihastha life is Sakshad Upasita Mahamuni. The word used is Upasita. Directly, Sakshad is directly, Upasita, that is how to deal with devotees. It's not even talking about just associate with devotees. It says Sakshad Upasita Mahamuni, that is directly worship great souls, especially in the renounced order of life. Sakshat Upasita Mahamuni. So how is this to be done? Sometimes people, right in the next verse it explains the detail of that. Sometimes people feel there can be various levels of association. One is, the least is one just offers hospitality to the saintly personalities. Like just how Chitraketu Maharaj was doing. The first time when Narad Muni had come, or Angira Muni had come, initially the first time, he was interested only in the hospitality part of it, welcoming and offering garlands, chandan, washing the lotus feet and all that. But he was not interested in hearing. And then a little better level is where a person is able to understand, where a person may know the saintly personality a little more in little more acquaintance, and maybe start socializing with the saintly personality. But the maximum benefit we can get from the saintly personality is by giving an oral reception, which is what the verses also very beautifully explains. Shrinvan Bhagavato Abhikshnam, Shrinvan Bhagavato Abhikshnam Avatar Kathamritam. So Bhagavatam is describing that Abhikshnam means always, continuous. One should constantly hear from the saintly personalities. What should he hear? Avatar Kathamritam, about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in that purport, Prabhupada explains that one should never feel I have heard enough, that I don't have to hear further. Very beautifully he expands on that. So how do we associate with the devotees? Sakshat Upasita Mahamuni, worship the devotees. But how do we actually worship? By hearing from the saintly personalities, especially as a format for Grihastha life. And just in the previous verses, the verse explains Virakta Raktavat. Virakta Raktavat. The word Virakta is very beautiful. Like Tyag is give up. But sometimes after we give up, even if the object is not in front of us, but sometimes the mind still is hovering around it. But Virakta is one has just given it up. It's not just detachment also. It's in one sense much more than a Vairagya. Virakta. Virakta Raktavat. So what is the format for Grihastha life being explained is, one should act as if he is Virakta Raktavat. That is, externally he should act as if he is attached, but internally he should be detached. Internal detachment, external attachment. That's what a Raja Rishi is. Raja external, Rishi internal. So obviously a very difficult combination which definitely requires a lot of cultivation throughout the life. Which is why the whole Bhagavad Gita, if you see, the theme is how to act in a spirit of detachment. Action in a spirit of detachment. The whole theme of Bhagavad Gita, like if you talk about karma yoga, action in Krishna consciousness, or the 6th chapter where right in the beginning, anashrita karma phalam, karyam karma karotiha. It's not a sannyasi, or rather he is a sannyasi, one who is action without being attached to the fruits of his labor. That is something very, very complicated in this material world, not so easy, because it's very natural for default mode for one to get attached to what one, when one performs actions. The third subtopic we'll try to see for today, which is the 6th verse translation. So this is response to suggestions. I'll just read the translation again here. An intelligent man in human society should make his own program of activities very simple. If there are suggestions from his friends, children, parents, brothers, or anyone else, he should externally agree saying, yes, that is all right. But internally he should be determined not to create a cumbersome life in which the purpose of life will not be fulfilled. So it's like, in my childhood days, I used to go to the village. I was in Bombay, born and brought up in Bombay, but in the vacation period, usually for like, in those days, it used to be like 2 months, we used to go to village. And when we used to go to village, people in the village would see us like, oh, as if you have come from US, or you have come from abroad, or like, it will be with a great respect and all that. I'm talking about old days, like 40 years before. So sometimes some would invite me to the house. I'm talking when I was a small child. So they would invite me to their houses. They would be very attracted, and they would come to the house and they would invite me to the house. Like I was wondering, will I be able to go to his house? It's not that it is far off, it's the same village. But then I was just thinking I may not be able to. So like I would be reluctant to say yes. So they would ask me, please come home, please come home. And I would not speak anything. I would not say no also, but I would not speak anything. Reluctant that, if I say yes, then I'm obligated, or I have to fulfill that and all that. So I would be a little reluctant. But later I could understand that, that may pain the person's heart. The person who is so affectionately inviting, please come home, please come home. And when a person does not even respond, then the other person might feel a little heartbroken, depending on the affection and the relationship, of course. And then towards when I was about to get married, which is again 20 years before, when I had gone to their house, would-be wife, which is now she's wife, their house for seeing. At that time, her uncle had told me, why don't it would be nice if you study further, like he was expecting that I should study MTech or PhD, or you can study further. Internally I was thinking, B only I completed. But when they were asking, I said, yes, we will see. We will see. Whatever is possible, we'll do the needful. So I'm just quoting here to express, further I didn't study anything. But when I made that point, that was acceptable, and I mean, talking from the circumstances perspective, that's what people expect. Yes, that is all right. Yes, that is all right. But whether you act on it or not everybody is serious enough on their own point also. Just like whether somebody is inviting to their house, not everybody is actually serious about it. I mean, it's sometimes a formality, sometimes a hospitality, and it's a social customs and all that. Similarly, when someone makes a point like this, rather than breaking their hearts, we just agree, yes, that is all right, but do the needful in terms of what is inclined, what is towards the purpose of life, and what helps us in actually becoming Krishna conscious. So if we try to see from examples from the scriptures, like Ravana, he received some suggestions from many of them, ministers and Marish and Mandodari also, but primarily his own brother, Vibhishan. So when his brother Vibhishan gave him suggestions, how did Ravan react? Ravan did not even agree. Here we are talking about agreeing to the point, but being internally determined to do the needful as per what is the goal of life. Here, Ravana does not agree. He doesn't say, yes, it is all right. Very, emphatically, exclusively, he rejects that. At the same time, is he internally determined? He was internally determined to do what he wanted. What was the purpose of his determination? The purpose of his determination was his own power. He wanted to be the king and he wanted to win the war and all such so on and so forth. In case of Dhritarashtra, when he receives suggestions or as a well-wisher from Vidura, how does Dhritarashtra react? He says yes to all. He doesn't deny what Vidura is telling. He agrees to everything, but does he have that internal determination? In fact, he is said to be an example of 𝗣𝗵𝗱𝗶𝗿, weakness of heart. He accepts, he agrees, but unable to follow. Right? Unable to follow. If you take the example of Bali Maharaj, when Shukracharya said, oh, this is the Supreme Lord who has come in the form of a Brahman, and he will ask you such things that you will be bereft of the entire property. Did Bali Maharaj accept to his suggestions? No, he outrightly rejected that. Was he internally determined? Yes. And what was the purpose of his determination? The purpose of his determination was to fulfill the purpose of life. He said, I knew if you say he is Supreme Personality of Godhead, it's a great honor for me to give to the Supreme Lord. Why should I refrain from this? So, in case of Ravana and Bali Maharaj, apparently both of them rejected. But Ravana rejected good advice. Bali Maharaj rejected bad advice. Which is better? Obviously, Bali Maharaj rejecting bad advice. Ravana was determined for his own power. Ravana was determined internally for his own, to keep himself in power. Whereas Bali Maharaj was determined internally to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Samsiddhir Haritoshan. This is Supreme Lord, then it is my great honor to offer my entire property to him. So that is how it is. So Ravana is rejecting good advice. Dhritarashtra is indifferent to good advice. He received so much, but he is indifferent to good advice. Whereas Bali Maharaj is having the courage to reject the bad advice. So, this is the usual, we can say, stance which Bhagavatam is explaining here. Generally, the general principle is agree, yes, that is all right. But do the needful in terms of see, like there are ads, mutual fund sahi hai. At the same time, they also talk, what is that? Disclaimer, no? What is that? Subject to market risks, right? So mutual fund sahi hai, but aapke liye sahi hai, we have to ponder over it. We have to contemplate on that. On a similar way, saying yes, that is all right, but contemplate whether if I accept or if I reject, what will be the consequences? Is this good for my life? Is this good for my to fulfill the purpose of my life? Or is it going to make my life more cumbersome and complicated? One has to contemplate about it. But the overall general principle is, yes, to agree, yes, that is all right, but be internally determined to do the needful. At the same time, there is a clear distinction between what is a suggestion versus what is a guidance versus what is instructions. In terms of suggestion, it is a general directions. Suggestion is a general directives. But guidance is much more, guidance is more customized to an individual based on regular observations. It's customized to the individual based on regular observations. Whereas instructions is given to trustworthy candidates based on the power, based on, we can say, position, authority, respect, or if there is no feedback. That's when instructions are given. Just imagine if instructions are given, if there is feedback. It's like, even if we speak on the mic, when there is feedback, we have to reduce our volume. We have to lower the volume, or we have to stop because there is a feedback. Similarly, when there is a feedback, there is no room for instructions. Feedback is coming. Feedback means not the mic feedback. When there is people rebel and give some feedback, then the authority feels this candidate is not yet ready for instructions. Then let us switch to guidance. If he is not ready for guidance, then let us switch to suggestions, which is a general directives, like that. And lastly, the last subsection which we'll try to discuss about, Prabhupada talks about the goal, Prabhupada talks about the gifts of God, which one receives in this life, and talking about utilizing the gifts of God. So this we'll discuss as recognize, utilize, and maximize the gifts of God. So here Prabhupada is explaining how the Lord is creating for our maintenance. The whole material world, if you see the creation, the Lord has nothing to do give and take with it. He is happy in 𝗤𝐿𝐴 nivasati 𝗤𝐿. He is happy in Golok. But this whole entire material arrangement, material world is created for our maintenance. All the needs that we have, all the necessities that we need is actually being fulfilled by the Supreme Personality of God. It's arranged only in such a way that it is for the maintenance. So here, if we are content and magnanimous, then there will be abundance. If we are content and magnanimous, then there will be abundance. But on the contrary, if we are greedy and exploitative, then there will be scarcity. If we are greedy and exploitative, you can see the current war situations. So this applies to individual, this applies to communities, this applies to nations, right? So from micro to macro, it can expand. So if one is greedy and exploitative, it leads to scarcity, the mentality scarcity, and overall also. So if we talk about the gifts of God, if we are asked to contemplate on what are the gifts of God, anybody would like to share? Anybody would like to express what are the gifts of God? As far as the purport is concerned, Prabhupada talks about the necessities of life, and in the previous purport, Prabhupada talks about human life itself is a gift. Right from, if we start with what to speak of what we are receiving in human life, human form itself is a gift of God. What to speak of what we are receiving in human form of life. And then in this purport, Prabhupada is highlighting about the necessities of life, which is food grains, flowers, and fruits, and so on and so forth. But these are the three which is highlighting here. Other than this, of course, from a spiritual perspective, one can be definitely conscious and grateful for the presence of spiritual master, right? 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗶 𝗦𝗵𝗵 Guru Krishna 𝗣𝗵𝗱𝗶 𝗵𝗵𝗱𝗶. One feels very fortunate to receive the gift of spiritual master, and what to speak of the association of Vaishnavas, the abundant association of Vaishnavas, which sometimes when there are too many gifts, we take it very casually. If we receive it once in a while, we are looking forward for it. But when gift comes every day, then we take it for granted. So actually all the association of Vaishnavas, that's actually a great gift. And what to speak of for those who are able to also stay close to the temple. That is also a gift of the Lord. This is one is to recognize the gift. Second is to be able to utilize it. In terms of even recognizing the gift, I was just wondering, particularly in the current war that is going on, there is a lot of scarcity of LPG cylinders and all those things. I was wondering whether there's a gift of God. So it actually comes from the natural resources in terms of propane and butane. So the Google explains it as it's God-given gift which is processed and harnessed by humans. So overall it is still a gift of God which is processed and harnessed by humans. So practically everything which is available and which is part of necessities is actually a gift of the Lord, which first step is we have to recognize. Second is utilize. Once we recognize what is the gift of the Lord, second stage comes is where we are able to utilize it. In utility, it is the Ishavasam principle. What is that? Ishavasamidam sarvam yatkincham jagatyam jagat tena tektena bhunjita magradakasya svidhanam. Take what is required. Accept what is required. At the same time, one has to be conscious not to waste any resources, whether it is water, whether it is electricity. I mean, there are so many examples even from Prabhupada's life where he refers to that. Resources, natural resources. One is take what is required. Second, do not waste unnecessarily. And third, be conscious after us also some more people or some more generations also are relying on these natural resources. It's not that our task is done, then let the world go to hell. No, there are future generations also. When they come, just imagine what will be their situation. What natural resources they will be able to get it. Right? So first is recognize, second is utilize. So like how Prabhupada also wish to mention that utility is the principle. So in this, take what is required, do not waste, and ensure you leave it for future people who are going to come. Even immediate future and for the future generations. Even if it is just prasadam honoring. It's not that, oh, it's just very little is remaining, let me grab my plate. We have to also see how many are remaining. What is there in the bucket and how many devotees are remaining. Based on that, we have to calculate how much comes in my plate. A simple understanding. So first is recognize, second is utilize. Utilize the gifts of God. And third is maximize it. Maximize the gifts of God. How can we maximize the gifts? Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains, 𝗦𝗵𝗱𝗶 pratyavayana vidyate 𝗦𝗵𝗱𝗶 dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. And there in the purport, Prabhupada writes, what is that trayate mahato bhayat? What is the greatest danger? From gliding into the lower species of life. That means if we spread Krishna consciousness, if we, many times Prabhupada used to say, we just give prasadam. When we spread Krishna consciousness, when we give prasadam to others, we can contemplate, we are distributing human form of life. We are helping people to not glide into the lower species of life. That's one aspect. Second, which is expressed in this particular purport itself, annad bhavanti bhutani parajanyat anna sambhava. Living entities subsist on food grains. But for food grains, what is required? Rainfall. Rainfall, how does the rain fall? By performance of yajna. And who will perform yajna? Those who are committed to do their prescribed duties. Such a beautiful cycle which is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. So how do we maximize the gifts of God? One is by distributing Krishna consciousness, even in a little way. 𝗦𝗵𝗱𝗶 dharmasya. Swalpam. That will help to save from the greatest danger. And second is when we perform our prescribed duties, which will eventually lead to performing of yajna, which will ensure rains fall at regular times, which will ensure there is food grains on which living entities are subsisting. So in SSR, I'll just conclude this last. In SSR, there is a article, Supreme Welfare Work, where there is a Andhra Pradesh Relief Fund Committee. That chairman is writing a letter to Prabhupada saying that there is drought for 2 years in Andhra here. Please, can you send your devotees? And if they come and perform Harinam Sankirtan, they come and perform Yagya, that will be a great advantage. And Prabhupada responded to that. That's a beautiful article which is there in Science of Self-Realization. You can refer to that. And also recently, not extremely recent, but from the perspective of time, 2016 there was a Sudarshan Yagya performed in Mayapur in TOEP. There were some around 350 devotees had been gathered. They combinedly chanted around 14,000 whatever some shlokas or chanting of the holy names, and eventually it says that just in half an hour there was a rainfall. There was a thunderstorm. This is in May, not a usual time for rainfalls. But then even in May there was a thunderstorm and there was heavy rainfall that way. So anyways, we are not here to prove that if we do yagya immediately there will be rains, but this is the principle. And it does happen because that is what faith means. Which is why Prabhupada actually says that, if one should have that faith that when we perform Harinam Sankirtan, there will be no scarcity of rains and food grains. There will be no scarcity of food and all that. So that is something which a devotee is supposed to have faith in terms of the scriptural injunctions, which gives conviction to be able to distribute Krishna consciousness to all others. Thank you very much. What we discussed today in brief was a recap of the different chapters that we went through. Then we discussed about the natural humility consciousness of Yudhishthira Maharaj. Then we discussed about a format for Grahastha life. Then we discussed on response to suggestions. And finally with recognize, utilize and maximize the gifts of God. Thank you very much. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, 𝗣𝗵𝗱𝗶 ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. If there are any comments or any questions, I'll take one. Should I take personal? One question. Okay.
Whose question? Who's one? I can ask. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Shankar
Hare
Pandit Prabhu, thank you so much for such brilliantly explaining the format of family life with these 4 verses and
that is mentioned right in Bhagavatam.
Yeah, but you extracted and gave so nice examples. I was just trying to reflect on, trying to understand the foundation of this format, which you ended with. That was like prescribed duties. And Prabhupada is translating here the vadanti, yad icchanti as suggestion in regard to one's means of livelihood. So possessions, comforts, lifestyle and all other things are coming from the occupation. So can you throw some light on choosing the right occupations? Because prescribed now, where it is prescribed, what should be the occupations of the devotees, so that, as you are saying, we have to look into the future, future generations. So can you throw some light? Because occupation is something one does for 8 hours in a day.
See, overall, it's been talking about a means of livelihood. So when you talk about duties, then obviously there is conditional duties and constitutional duties. When it comes to Swarup Dharma, Swadharma versus the Swarup Dharma, which is part of constitutional, there is no ambiguity in that, which is from the scriptures. Practicing Krishna consciousness, that prescribed duty, there is no ambiguity, right? From the perspective of Varna and Ashram, there is a lot of scope for discussion. There is a lot of scope for misunderstanding, and clarity is not there, which is obvious as we are in Kali Yuga, and it will take probably some more generations to get some more clarity in terms of what's mentioned in the scriptures, because certain things are applicable in the previous ages when it cannot be just copied and pasted as it is. Because one has to have intelligence even to copy and paste. How much to copy, where to copy, and what to make some adjustments and paste, where, when, and all that. So there is intelligence discrimination required even in terms of the modern day application, which is why it's not a clear-cut thing. Overall, the guidance is Krishna should be in the center, it should be the anchor, Krishna should be the anchor, and our lives should be molded around that. So if one sees that something is taking us away from our purpose of life, from a long-term perspective, from a major chunk of our lives, then one has to be very conscious. So even when it says, yes, that is all right, this is the general principle, but not that for everything we agree, yes, that is all right. There are certain things that we have to disagree also. If it is if it is against the principle of purpose of life, if it is taking us away from Krishna consciousness, one may have to sometimes outrightly also say no. But overall, the general principle is, yes, that is all right. The whole purpose is to ensure we have a cordial relation, because we are talking about social life here. We are talking about family life, especially when they are with the family members or the relatives and all. There is a lot of interactions. And for every interaction, if we try to give our opinion and if we disagree, overall there will not be harmony. So from that perspective, it is mentioned as generally agree, yes, that is all right, but do the needful, being thoughtful. So again, there will be from the verses Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita perspective, we can always say, what is the occupation for a Brahmana, what is the occupation for a Kshatriya, what is the occupation for a Vaishya and a Shudra. Similarly, from ashram perspective. But those clarity, until things are clear about what is the Varna in ashram, obviously there will be little disparity on that. But the guiding principle is it helping me to fulfill the purpose of life? Is it helping me to go towards Krishna in the long run? And if it is for a short-term discomfort, complication is there, one may still have to embrace it, considering the long-term benefit of it. If it helps us in practicing Krishna consciousness throughout my life, whatever helps, it's like anything that is conducive, anukulyasya sankalpa. Anything which is favorable for Krishna consciousness has to be accepted, and anything unfavorable has to be rejected. This has to be the guiding principle, and based on this, every situation has to be analyzed. Primarily depends on the goal, depends on the relationship, depends on the circumstances. Sometimes you say yes and you still do the opposite. Sometimes you say yes only to please the person. Doesn't have nothing further implications on that. And sometimes you may have to say, you have to keep your foot down to say no if it is detrimental to our Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, a little fringe or that area is a little gray zone, which requires discussion and customization. Nothing. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.